You ready, Zim? His producer's voice reached him through the hidden earpiece.
Almost.
The Duros reporter scanned the data once again, clearly intrigued.
Are we sure this is accurate? I don't want us spreading false information to the entire galaxy and then apologizing for it.
The numbers come from the Tau themselves, and we have no way to corroborate their statement. Enlias explained in a tired tone. Look, Zim, we are lucky as it is that Celine is already on the scene. If we don't hurry, other news stations will beat us to it, and even worse, there is talk that the Tau ambassador will address the Senate soon. We can't sit on our asses and wait. We need to air it now. Zim let out a breath and sat down behind the desk, an almost white desk. He had to admit, he didn't like the aesthetic the new designer came up with. Everything was too bright, almost white, with only a hint of color added to the clothing, walls and objects in the studio. It contrasted well with his green skin, as well as whatever they showed their viewers on the screen. But in his opinion, it was too stark, too contrasting. But he was the reporter, not the CEO who came up with this brilliant idea. So he decided to stick with his part of the job and not be bothered with those who paid his salary, as long as they kept doing so.
Alright, let's bring that news to the wider galaxy.
He straightened up, cleared his throat and nodded.
Ready when you are.
Alright, breaking news segment on the attack on the Tau colony. In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
We interrupt our regular programming to bring you breaking news. The Tau Empire's frontier colony of Furious Ned has been attacked by an alliance of pirates, mercenaries, and slavers. According to official sources, the fleet counted over 100 ships of all shapes and sizes, and included some of the more notorious criminal groups in the region. Among them, a self-proclaimed clan of Mandalorian warriors known as the Void Wolves, or Clan Vargir, was sighted over the planet. Our viewers may remember them from their bold raid on the Arcana system a mere year ago. Another notable group was the Rightful Rulers, an extremist criminal band of Quarren, known for stealing Mon Calamari ships and using them in piracy. Tau reports indicate that the leader of the group, Nor Shatar, was killed during the battle. Most shocking and infamous of all groups that took part in the attack, however, were the Ravix Reavers, who many of our viewers may know from their devastating raids on Solus, Solia Van, Rhodia, Ord Mantell, and Jabim. According to our sources on the ground, it was Ravix the Red himself who led the initial assault and acted as the de facto leader of the Pirate Alliance. The exact reason for this attack is unknown. We could only speculate that Ravix, as a warlord, sought to gain even more infamy in the region by striking at the newcomers to our galaxy. However, despite the overwhelming numerical advantage and aerial superiority, the main settlement on the surface, the town of Wildjade, managed to hold off the assault long enough for reinforcements to arrive. More precisely, the flagship of a Blackthorn dynasty aligned with the Tau Empire, Herald of Profit.
Zim paused and turned his head to look at the behemoth that appeared on the screen. Some of the studio staff gasped in shock at the enormity of the vessel. He honestly hadn't believed it himself until he saw it on screen, where the text had added a comparison with more typical Republic ships, like a Dreadnought-class heavy cruiser, to illustrate its size.
The arrival of this vessel, which rivals of Mandator 1 of Kuwa drive yards in scale, was enough to make the pirates abandon their attack and scatter in all directions, leaving many of their comrades to be captured by the defenders and their allies.
He stood up and moved closer to the screen, which shifted to a live feed of a young, ambitious Turgutan journalist standing in the field with the cities and smoldering wreckage in the background.
Our correspondent, Celine Hetred, is on the scene.
He said, turning towards the screen.
Celine, tell us, what's the current situation?
There was a brief pause before Celine nodded.
It's a grim picture, Zim. As you can see, the city itself suffered substantial damage. Rescue operations and firefighting continue in and around the city limits.
She walked toward the wreckage of a tank, which Zim recognized instantly.
I'm told that the pirates attacked with overwhelming numbers. Men, droids, and vehicles, including this AAT tank. There are many more scattered across the battlefield, but we can't show them live, as the bodies of the dead haven't yet been removed.
Zim now understood why Celine's expression was more serious than usual. She was known for her energy and bright smile, but she wasn't smiling today.
I understand. Can you tell us about the casualties on both sides?
Zim asked.
The pirate losses are still unknown, but Tau commanders estimate that more than 5,000 droids were destroyed, and around 4,000 living pirates were killed or captured.
Celine took a deep breath.
As for the defenders, they report roughly 1,500 casualties among their warriors, dead and wounded. But more importantly, over 5,000 civilians were enslaved and taken off-world, which constitutes around 15% of the total planetary population.
Zim nodded, rubbing his chin.
I see. Those are some shocking numbers. How did the pirates manage to enslave that many people? How did the defenders fail to protect the civilians?
The Turgutan journalist shook her head.
I believe one of the defenders themselves could speak to that. While the overall commander of the local forces, Commander Coca Truestrike, refused to comment, stating she's occupied with the current situation, I've managed to convince them to let me speak with several soldiers who took part in the defense.
Zim barely contained a gasp. 7 Tau warriors stood in an orderly line, each one wounded and still visibly weary after the battle. There was a tall giant with bandages wrapped around his right arm, his expression one of cold steel. A crimson-haired young warrior, a woman, stared straight ahead, her eyes fixed on some distant point. A scar cut across her face, but her gaze never wavered. Beside her stood a male warrior with a crimson cybernetic eye protruding from a fresh, still healing wound on his face. Next to him was a very small female Tau warrior, so small she almost looked like a child. Her left arm was missing, yet her face showed focus and determination, not pain or despair. The same could not be said for her taller companion, a Tau woman with her eyes closed, as if she didn't want to look at the world anymore. The next warrior was the most striking. He stood at attention, his one remaining eye tracking the camera lens. The entire right side of his face was charred black, a metal plate holding part of his skull together. The last soldier stood in a stoic silence, his eyes fixed on something far in the distance, ignoring the journalist completely.
These are the survivors of the 4th Squad of the 2nd Cadet Cadre.
Celine explained.
I was permitted to speak to them about their experiences during their first battle.
She turned to introduce each of them.
Their names are Rei Ka, Songstrike, Oshi Vesa, Unseen Helper, Era Kao, Shadow Hunter, Velda Ned, Golden Guardian, Esksa, Forceful Dagger, Zunjita, Vengeful Spear, and Asakurai, Perceptive.
Each Tau bowed their head as they were introduced. Zim struggled not to twitch from excitement. A squad of cadets. Now that was a striking image. They'd get a lot of views from this. He was sure of it. He cleared his throat.
I'm surprised to see that cadets took part in the battle.
He said, doing his best to hide his eagerness.
Why would those responsible for planetary defense put you on the front lines?
It took a moment for the words to be translated into the Tau language, and after they did, the smallest of the Tau stepped forward. Her voice was deeper and more serious than Zim expected. We are cadets only on paper. We were sent to Furious Net for our final test, the trial by fire, where we faced former members of the Imperial Guard. We succeeded. We were waiting for transport back to the Sept for the official ceremony when the colony was attacked, explained Veldened, Golden Guardian. Additionally, by Firecast protocols, those at the end of their training can be ordered into active military service in case of critical situation or extreme danger. The oversized Tau added. Our participation in the battle is nothing out of the ordinary for our cast. Zim did his best not to grimace. These Tau weren't cooperating with his vision for the segment, and he could see the same reaction in Celine. They wanted drama, some hint of abuse of authority by the local command. But for now, they had nothing. Time for some fishing. He made a barely noticeable gesture, signaling Celine to continue questioning the cadets. He hoped they would reveal something that could be used to add drama to the story. Attacks on worlds in the Outer Rim were usually linked to scandals, military incompetence, or corruption that weakened defenses. He was sure they'd find something similar here.
Understood. So, your participation in the battle was simply part of standard military protocol.
Celine acknowledged.
What can you tell us about the battle itself? We've received a rough timeline from your officials, but we'd like to hear it from you, as would our viewers.
Strong Strike glanced at Veldened, who shook her head. You were always better storyteller, Reka, she said, making a bizarre hand sign, placing her right hand into her open palm and raising 2 fingers. Zim knew the Tau had a complex sign language, as they rarely used facial expressions outside of a watercast, but the meaning behind that gesture was lost on him, as it was on Celine. Strong Strike bowed his head, performing another sign where both hands clasped together. Then he turned to Celine. Earlier today, it was decided that the 2 cadet cadres would be split, each tasked with different exercise for the day. The first cadre was to act as convoy protection detail to secondary base far outside the city. Former guardsmen were to set up traps and obstacles along the route. Our cadre was tasked with defending the lumber camp south of the city, ensuring that OPFOR forces fail to capture designated items of interests or endanger the workers there. He explained. We were nearing the end of the exercise when news of the enemy fleet arrived. We were then tasked with defending the outer wall alongside a few other units, to ensure the safety of civilians evacuating into the city.
As I understand it, there are a number of villages outside Wild Jade. Why weren't you sent to protect them directly?
Celine asked. Many villages are too far away, and attempting to defend them would strip the city of valuable defenders. It's also true that by holding the line, we allowed military transports to be sent out to collect civilians, speeding up evacuation. Strong Strike explained.
What about the civilians beyond the range of those vehicles?
She asked. Distant villages have their own shelters and protocols. People settling there are aware that they are outside the range of Wild Jade's garrison. He answered swiftly.
Are you aware that more than 1,000 of the 5,000 civilians enslaved in the raid were from those distant villages?
Celine asked, pointedly. No, I was not. Strong Strike replied, his voice made of steel. But I'm also not surprised. The young journalist blinked in surprise.
How so?
Our doctrine and protocols were created around far more hostile forces, most of which forego enslavement and move straight to total extermination. Strong Strike explained. As such, they usually focus their attention on what they perceive as a major threat to that objective, and only later move on to the mass murder of the civilian population. The pirates we faced operated on completely different principles. Many avoided Wild Jade for a long time, instead focusing on soft and easy targets. The way the young warrior spoke, so calmly, so matter-of-factly, about being prepared for a war of extermination, yet not the pirate raid, it was chilling.
But how do you feel about nearly 15% of the total planetary population being enslaved?
Celine pressed, trying to provoke some emotional reaction. Strong Strike narrowed his eyes. I'm angry that so many citizens of the Commonwealth were enslaved. But I'm also glad that through our sacrifice, the remaining 85% were saved. His voice hardened. Most importantly, the fact that the 15% were enslaved gives me hope, for those people can still be rescued. He locked his burning crimson eyes on the camera lens. As long as they live, there is hope. Celine and Zim both swallowed hard at that. These soldiers, little more than cadets, had been conditioned to accept far greater casualties among their own civilian population. Even if those 15% had all died, they would still have seen it as a success, because the rest were saved. But with those civilians enslaved, they retained hope. They could still be brought home. There was no doubt they operated on logic, but it was a logic born of a completely different reality. One that was anathema to the modern republic. Pirate raids aimed at enslavement were horrific, yes, but far more common than the kind of total extermination these Tau seemed to prepare for. Celine cleared her throat, realizing she wouldn't get anywhere with that line of questioning. She could see that even Zim, for all his years of experience, was stunned into silence.
I see. So you witnessed the initial wave of pirates that reached the planet's surface?
She asked. Yes, we were right there, Strong Strike confirmed, pointing at the ruins of the outer wall. We successfully repelled their attacks for as long as we could, then retreated behind the inner wall just as the shield generator was activated. After that, there was a 2-hour pause in the fighting. They called for reinforcements, and the number of pirates swelled after that. Then they launched a coordinated assault, one force striking Shokai Island and another conducting an underwater attack using droids and Quarren pirates.
I see. And where were you during this assault?
Celine asked. One of the bridges inside the city. Our squad was tasked with helping evacuate civilians from Shokai Island to the city center, as command determined the island would have to be abandoned if the enemy committed enough forces. We were there when the Quarren pirates and droids broke through the valiant Galg defenders and started emerging from the river. Strong Strike said in a heavy tone.
Ah, yes, the Galg. One of the members of the Commonwealth.
Celine nodded.
I heard they suffered extremely heavy losses during the battle.
I heard so as well. Over 70% of all Galg fighters lost their lives in the battle, the majority of them trying to stop the underwater assault. Strong Strike acknowledged. Here, an opening. Zim cleared his throat.
What do you think of an ally of a Tau suffering such catastrophic losses in the battle?
He asked.
Some might describe it as a reckless sacrifice of allies.
Strong Strike gaze grew colder. The Galgs are heroes of this battle. They threw themselves in the path of the enemy's advance, giving their lives to slow them down, just long enough for civilians to cross to the other side.
Yes, but how is it that only the Galgs suffered such catastrophic losses out of all forces on the planet?
Zim pressed, hoping to crack the cadets' steady facade. They were the only force capable of challenging both the Quarren and the droids underwater. Other units lacked the experience and equipment to support them. Strong Strike replied sternly. The Galg aren't a warrior species. Very few take up arms in the name of a greater good, but those who do have proven to be tenacious. They are no less my siblings than any other member of a Firecast. They did what had to be done. They sacrificed the lives of a few to save the lives of the many. That is what it means to be a warrior serving the greater good. Zim grimaced, irritated by the unwavering faith these Tau had in their so-called greater good.
A high praise,
He said evenly.
though I'm unsure their families will appreciate that, given the loss of their loved ones.
Strong Strike remained silent for a moment. Death and grief are inevitable results of battle. It's a fundamental truth. One that only fools refuse to acknowledge. This time, Zim's grimace was far more pronounced. The youngster had just called him out. He understood that much. He was ready to fire back with a sharp remark, but Celine quickly cut in, steering the conversation away from the topic.
I understand that the defense failed and the enemy managed to critically damage the shield reactor.
Celine said quickly. Confirmed. We focused on protecting civilians and engaging enemies exiting the river. From what I've gathered, a more advanced droid managed to force its way through the water cooling systems and detonate explosives beneath the generator, damaging it enough to bring down the shields. He shook his head. The battle became more chaotic after that. The pirates launched air raids and deployed additional units from above, including warriors I've been told are called Mandalorians. That caught everyone's attention. Zim even heard murmurs ripple through the studio.
You faced off against Mandalorians?
He asked in surprise. Yes, managed to kill one. Strong Strike answered, almost casually.
How?
Selene asked, her eyes widening.
Mandalorians are known to be extremely dangerous. Their warrior prowess is legendary.
Is that so? Strong Strike replied, sounding unimpressed. They were far better trained and equipped than any other force that attacked the colony, but they didn't seem to be anything beyond elite troops.
How can you say that?
Selene sounded genuinely shocked. Rather than Strong Strike or Golden Guardian, it was Vengeful Spear who answered. If we were facing Space Marines rather than Mandalorians, none of us would have survived. The badly scarred Tau said, his empty eye socket seemingly to bore into the reporter's very soul. We would have been lucky to kill a handful of them, far less to hold the line long enough for reinforcements to arrive. There was another long pause, Selene going slightly pale.
You sound quite certain of that.
She managed. We all went through simulations, Zunjida stated coldly. We were trained and expected to fight monsters far greater than Mandalorians, even if we weren't expected to survive doing so.
I see.
Was all Selene could say after another uneasy silence. This time it was Zim who broke it.
We understand that after the shields fell, Ravix the Red personally broke through the inner wall and engaged Commander True Strike directly in combat. Excuse me, sir. We're trying to gather useful information about the battle to share with the viewers all across the galaxy. Do you have anything interesting you can share?
He prompted. So we heard, but we didn't witness it, Strong Strike stated. We retreated to the city center with the forces that defended Shokai Island. Later on, we joined the defense in the east of the city. He continued. We took part in several skirmishes and stalling actions. The fighting was hard, but with the shields back on, we... Kid! Is that you? Strong Strike's story was abruptly cut off by an unexpected voice. Selene and Zim both looked on in surprise at someone who resembled nothing less but a miniature human, with large, hairy feet and a sizable sniper rifle slung across his back. The strange man rushed towards Strong Strike with a broad grin. "Ha! Strong Strike, kid! As the goddess is my witness, I am glad to see you!" He laughed. Slick? Strong Strike looked equally surprised and genuinely happy to see the diminutive man. He stepped forward to meet him and bowed, clasping his arm. The small man laughed heartedly. "Ha! Damn it, boy, and here I was worried I'd never see you again!" He glanced over the other cadets who were now walking over. There are fewer of you left than I'd like, but more than I feared." He shook hands with each cadet in turn. "Good to see you." "Likewise, friend," Oshivesa said with a small smile. "Are you alone?" Sadly, yes. Lost the rest of my team." He nodded grimly. "But I'm still alive, and I made the bastards pay dearly for taking their lives, I tell you." The man looked ready to launch into his entire story when Selene cleared her throat.
Excuse me, but...
What in the blazes? He turned toward the journalist, taking a closer look. "Who are you supposed to be? And who wears a dress on a battlefield?" "Nobi, this is Selene Trad. a news correspondent for HoloNet News. She is from the Republic. Strong Strike explained. Miss Celine, allow me to introduce Nobi Griggs, also known as Slick. Uphuman Rattling, sniper and scout of a local human garrison. Formerly Imperial Guardsman of Slavian Warborn, he added proudly, extending a hand. A pleasure.
Likewise.
Celine said, shaking his hand, still slightly taken aback by bizarre soldier.
I was just conducting an interview with these cadets about the battle. We're currently live.
Oh! Griggs turned to one of the hovering camera droids and smiled. Well, ain't that a wonder? Back in the guard, they'd had to strap an astropath to that thing to send anything at all! He burst out laughing. Celine and Zim exchanged a glance. Neither had the faintest idea what an astropath was, but with the cadets proving stubbornly resistant to drama or scandal, perhaps this bumbling fool would turn out to be far more useful.
Excuse me, sir.
Zim said after clearing his throat.
We're trying to gather useful information about the battle to share with viewers all across the galaxy. Do you have anything interesting you could share?
Celine caught on quickly to what Zim was trying to do.
Yes, did you take an active part in the battle?
Did I take part in the battle, she asks. Ha! Rattling laughed. Dear, I killed one of the pirate leaders. Or at least I think so. Celine raised an eyebrow.
Really?
Yeah, me and my squad stayed in the forest when the pirates landed. We were scouting and sabotaging their efforts, hiding right under their noses. We were near the river when those squid faces... Quarren. Strong Strike supplied. Yeah, Quarren or whatever they are called, landed in force. There was this dude in fancy armor, gave a speech and sent his troops into the river. I realized he must be the leader of the group, so I climbed up the tree to get a better position. I lay there, waiting for the right moment. Had to stay put for almost 30 minutes before he came back with some elite-looking warriors. I took aim, but the guy started another speech. I didn't care much, couldn't understand a word anyway, so I fired and blew his head apart like a balloon. Slick roared with laughter. And the recoil of my rifle was so strong, I fell from the tree, nearly broke me neck. Celine blinked a few times, taken aback how cheerful this short man spoke about killing someone, and almost dying himself, when something suddenly clicked in her mind.
Wait, do you mean Nor Shall Tor?
She asked in disbelief. Who? Nobi raised an eyebrow. Nor she Tor?
No!
Celine huffed, flustered and quickly pulled out a holodisk. She scrolled through several files before projecting the hologram of Nor Shall Tor. This
is Nor Shall Tor, leader of the Quarren pirate group calling themselves the Rightful Rulers. Did you kill him?
Nobi leaned in for a closer look. Yup, that's the guy, he said with a wide grin. So what was his name? A fitting name for a dead bastard. That was it. The story both Celine and Zim had been hoping for. The infamous Quarren, slain by a laughing rattling sniper who mocked the so-called Pirate King with every breath. Not exactly the drama they'd expected, but this part of the story would definitely get numbers. And with Celine still on the scene, there was plenty of potential for follow-up interviews and reports. Zim was about to ask another question when a message suddenly came through his comm.
Celine, Please continue your investigation of the scene as we, and our viewers, must now move to the Galactic Senate.
Zim said, moving back to his seat.
We've been informed that the Tau Empire's ambassador to the Galactic Republic, Silent Tide, will address the Galactic Senate.
The lights dimmed, and the image on the massive screen changed to show the Senate chamber. Tau Ambassador moving to the middle of the chamber on a uniquely customized hovering platform. Silent Tide, surrounded by drones and information displays, looked around, catching as many eyes as she could before she began her speech. Esteemed members of the Galactic Senate, honorable representatives of the people of the Republic, the Tau Empire has been attacked. She announced in a voice like a tsunami approaching the shore. A little over a month has passed since our Commonwealth was displaced into this galaxy, and since then we have sought a path of peace and cooperation. As our philosophy dictates, we acted in accordance with the greater good, in the name of unity and prosperity for all. But dark, destructive forces in the Outer Rim decided to strike at us. An alliance of pirates, mercenaries, and slavers raided our world. Over 150 ships clouded the sky above the peaceful frontier colony of Furious Ned, seeking our destruction and enslavement. Hundreds of our valiant defenders are dead. Thousands of our citizens have been enslaved and taken in chains off-world. Yet, Furious Ned endured. This brutal, organized and coordinated attack was directed by destructive forces in the Outer Rim that would prefer the people of the region to remain scared, oppressed and enslaved rather than work together in the name of unity and prosperity. This attack was aimed to shock the Commonwealth into inaction, to push us into a dark place of fear where ignorance becomes the only path to survival. I am here to tell you and those responsible for this attack, the Commonwealth stands tall. We have endured this savage strike, and we shall respond with brutal precision, aiming the fist of our empire, our fleets, our armies at the pirates, slavers and mercenaries of the Outer Rim who oppress the innocent. This task will be monumental, for the Outer Rim is vast and the reach of our Commonwealth is small. Yet it is not only my belief, but that of High Elemental Council and the Ethereal Supreme Aunva, that together the Commonwealth and the Republic can shine light into the darkest corners of the galaxy. Days ago, some of the senators present here today dismissed my calls for the Galactic Republic and the Tau Commonwealth to sign anti-piracy and anti-slavery treaties, aimed at two greatest evils currently plaguing the Outer Rim. Some of you mocked my concerns and the importance of these treaties. I hope that today, after witnessing the terrible act unleashed upon Furious Ned, you now see their necessity. I hope that after witnessing not just the suffering of my people, but also the resilience of our forces, the deaths of pirate kings and the flight of warlords who have ravaged the Outer Rim for decades, that now you see the Tau will not be the idle side in this partnership. Honorable Senators, the Outer Rim cries out for help, and it is the duty of the strong to defend the weak and punish the wicked. Applause echoed through the chamber, especially from the senators representing the outer and mid-rim. They were most familiar with the threats of pirates and slavers, and with this new revelation, it would be difficult not to voice their support, and risk looking weak to their own electorate. Zim noted that Silent Tide did not hide a small, satisfied smile. I ask the Senate to reconsider the terms of both treaties, so we may work together in the name of our people's security. And I assure you, the Tau will not rest until all of our citizens are freed from bondage, and all responsible for this barbaric act are punished for their abhorrent deeds. By Tau Va, let it be so. Another wave of applause swept through the Senate as Silent Tide's platform drifted back into the shadows, allowing the senators to deliberate among themselves. Zim exhaled quietly.
You saw it here first, dear viewers. The aftermath of the Battle of Furious Ned, and the call for a treaty to be signed between the Tau Commonwealth and the Galactic Republic. We will keep you updated.
Zim said with a wide smile, noticing his producer grinning from ear to ear.
And now, Iris with the sports news.
They walked side by side, 4 guards in formation, 8 steps behind them, 2 elite armsmen of her dynasty, 2 specially bred guardians of ethereal caste. Their heavy steps contrasted with the quieter movement of their masters. I approve of your ambition, Lady Captain. Aun Suho, shining empathy, said with a nod. The losses you suffered after betraying the Imperium and after the Great Displacement cannot be ignored. The ethereal caste will make sure the realm of Blackthorn Dynasty grows and prospers. Francesca smiled. She knew the sweet words hid another truth. The Tau had to sweeten the deals they made with their allies. As alien as this galaxy was, it wasn't as hostile as the previous one, so concessions had to be made to keep their allies close and satisfied. She glanced at the ethereal. She was younger than most Francesca interacted with, but there was strength and power in her conviction. Her yellow eyes, a rare color among the Tau, held a cold intelligence and logic, a striking contrast to her name. She moved with grace and purpose, matched only by Francesca herself. Both were queens in their own right. "And what of your ambitions?" Francesca asked. "From what I hear, the 4th expansion fleet still awaits new orders." The Great Displacement changed everything. The ethereal answered in a measured tone. "But we are never idle. Our plans are already in motion. Soon enough, we shall give new orders, and the 4th sphere of expansion will commence." A bold move. What of a republic? Francesca asked. "Aren't you worried they will try to stop you?" "If we tried to launch it now, they would." Aun Sun Ho confirmed. "But pieces are moving, and soon through acts of force, we shall ensure few will be brave enough to stop us." She smiled slightly. More importantly, the Republic is weak in the region. Their presence and authority are limited. Huts and corporations will be a bigger problem than the Republic or the Senate, and even then, there will still be plenty of worlds to colonize. She shook her head. According to our scouts, there are many habitable worlds very close by, yet the majority remain unclaimed or even unmapped by the Republic. Intriguing. The rogue trader rubbed her chin. I wonder if it's a problem navigating to those worlds using a hyperdrive, or just another symptom of a core abandoning the Outer Rim. Most likely, a combination of both. Either way, there are many opportunities for expansion in the region, more than enough space and resources for both the Tau and all of our allies. The Ethereal said firmly. But this can only happen after a show of force that will make all potential rivals think twice before challenging us. They moved slowly alongside the great windows, behind which they could see Furious Ned and the fleet gathered there. The patrol fleet was still damaged, the crippled hull of Fang's Eclipse drifting nearby. Only the resupply fleet was in any decent shape. More than a dozen ships in total lingered in orbit. Francesca looked up at the banners of her dynasty hanging from the ceiling. You hope to find the potential target through interrogations, the lady captain observed rather than asked. Yes, we have already secured many prisoners of war, and the Thousand Eyes have begun interrogations. Francesca felt a chill at the mention of the Watercast spy organization. Soon we shall know from where those pirates attacked us. Commander Surestrike and his fleet are already en route, she added, a shine in her eyes. Surestrike? Francesca asked, surprised. I expected you would send Shadow Sun herself. Osha Sera is busy leading Operation Purifying Storm. The Orc threat cannot be allowed to spread beyond the territory displaced into this galaxy. The Ethereal said in a tone that allowed no argument. You should be well aware of how important that is. Your fleets support our efforts. Oh, she was. It was partly the reason she had been so close to Furious Ned when the call for help came. She had been hunting orcs, with little success. Only one damaged light cruiser had been found, and it took barely 5 minutes to turn it into space dust. The operation you speak of is a great success, Francesca countered. Since the displacement, the orcs have been even less organized than usual. It seems being cut off from the rest of their brethren has weakened them substantially. Or it's only a temporary moment of confusion, and the orcs will soon regain their strength, Aun Sun Ho said, shaking her head. We cannot take any chances. That is why Osha Sera is needed there. True enough, Francesca conceded. So, you hope the interrogation will reveal a potential target for Surestrike? I'm certain they will reveal more than one. Shining Empathy replied firmly. The first targets of a new expansion. Ambitious, Francesca nodded. Will there be a room for my expansion in this move? Perhaps, the Ethereal said after a pause, clearly considering the proposition. It depends on the number of priority targets, and whether any of them prove to be of interest to you. Since the strength of your dynasty has already been revealed, it would be pointless to keep it hidden. That, and you know, I'm willing to take risks when others won't. Francesca added with a faint smile. Speaking of which, any word from the League? She asked, intrigued. Nothing new. Last I heard, all kin within the Commonwealth have gathered at Kalitok and nearby systems. The Ethereal explained. The Serantok Mercantile League appears to hold the dominant position, and we suspect they will take overall control of all the kin transported alongside us. But for now, they seem to be in nothing but a state of total confusion and near anarchy. Give them time to figure things out, Francesca said in a calming tone. The kin always find a solution to any problem they encounter. Shining Empathy simply nodded, offering no disagreement. They continued walking along the corridor of the ship. Furious Ned remained the silent companion, the green-blue sphere listening in silence. Francesca noticed a familiar figure standing ahead of them, gazing into the infinite darkness. She smiled. Seiren. An Eldar and her lover turned to face her. His eyes gleamed like star gems, his hair long and darkened than the void, his armor a blend of golden fire and radiant jewels. A cape made from the hide of an ancient reptilian beast flowed down his shoulders. He smiled softly and bowed his head. Elantar, he greeted her. It's good to see you. It's good to see you as well. She walked closer and took his hand. I was worried. You've been stalking in the shadows lately. Yes. The Eldar paused, searching for the right words, one that could bridge the gulf of understanding between them. Shael, the warp is so quiet. I no longer feel the presence of she who thirsts. I still do not know what to think, nor what to feel. Hey, you are not alone, my love, she said, squeezing his hand gently. Whatever you need, I shall provide. The Eldar exhaled, his voice heavy with longing. What I need are others of my kind, those who understand what is happening better than any human ever could. He turned his gaze back toward the dark void. It's especially irritating when they are this close. The rogue trader and the Ethereal walked closer to the window, following his gaze into the void. The green gem of a planet and system star shining brightly before them. Moments later, faint flickers of light shimmered in the distance, several shapes revealing themselves for the briefest instant, glinting in the sunlight before vanishing once more. Corsairs! Aun Sun Ho muttered in irritation. Always showing up when they are neither needed nor wanted. A light cruiser and a pair of escorts, if I'm not mistaken, Francesca Dominica noted. My oracle suspects they've been in system since before the pirate raid even began. She shook her head. They probably waited for the perfect moment to save the colony, hoping for a reward. Or they were planning to raid Furious Ned themselves. The Furial scoffed, turning her gaze towards Siren. Any insight you might share? Siren's tone was measured. I believe they belong to the Sunblitz Brotherhood. As for their purpose, I think they are here just to observe, keeping an eye on the movements of the Tau Navy and that of the Blackthorn dynasty. Let's hope that's all they are interested in for now. The Ethereal side. The Corsairs have always been a wild card. I doubt that will change in this galaxy. She turned back to the rogue trader. I am needed elsewhere, Lady Captain. We shall speak again soon. Of course, my guards will guide you to the exit. With that brief farewell, the Ethereal departed. Francesca and Siren were left alone. She glanced at her lover, leaned in close, and he did not pull away. Quite the opposite. His arm slipped around her waist, drawing her closer. They remained like that, wrapped in silence, simply enjoying each other's presence and the endless void before them. Yet, no matter how they strained their senses, the Eldar Corsair warships remained hidden. Well, hello there, my dear viewers and listeners. Did you like the big reveal by the end of the episode? I hope you did. People have been pestering me about when and what other 40k factions will show up. Well, now you know. Orcs, Eldar Corsairs, and Serantok Mercantile League have confirmed presence in the Sky River Galaxy, with Orcs getting exterminated by Shadowsun, Corsairs keeping silent watch, and the Kin reorganizing, regrouping and trying to figure out what to do next. I hope the wait was worth it. Another big thing, I extend my thanks to Artificial Dragon and Darth Celine, hosts of Can Mayonnaise Kill a Jedi podcast. I have been a fan of their work for quite some time and had a pleasure of being a guest in one of their episodes, namely Droids, Advanced Tools or Enslaved Sentience. Links in the description and pinned comment below. Artificial Dragon voiced a Duros reporter, Zim Nograd, and Darth Celine voiced, to surprise of everyone, Torguta journalist, Celine Htrad. Those more perceptive of you probably already noticed that last names of their characters are just their names backwards. Dragon, Nograd. Darth, Htrad. Yes, I used the Alucard method, sue me. But, jokes aside, I'm really glad that they decided to take part in my story and voice those characters. Thank you. I also thank the artists, Makawi, 3D Vincents, and Hayden Lumpkin for creating art for this episode and this series. And remember, you can donate to the series art budget through Ko-fi. Now, few additional announcements. First, I want to try my hand with shorts and a side mini-series, namely news broadcasts and 1000 Eyes. With broadcasts, the intention is to write very short scripts, some that can be shorts, that either inform about what is happening in the wider galaxy, so you can glimpse of what is happening in the background and get additional info. Should boost overall viewership of the channel as well. 1000 Eyes, also short video format. But rather than what is known officially, you will get glimpses into operations and actions of a secretive intelligence gathering organization of the Tau Empire, known as the 1000 Eyes. Starting with interrogations of prisoners after victory on Furious Ned. I want to play around with more Cold War, subtle grimdarkness of the Tau. Those wouldn't be even full scenes or conversations, just snippets of what Tau Empire is doing in the shadows. Both series are meant to be additional material to the main story. Nothing major, just to keep you updated on what is happening in the wider galaxy and in the shadows. This way, I won't need to clog up main episodes with too many tangents about non-critical content. The final announcement is, I got a new job. Yeah, to those unaware, until recently I was happily unemployed and was basically surviving on my savings, support from family, and what YouTube and Patreon supporters provided. Don't worry, there was no hardship. With those earnings I could reliably feed myself, so I wasn't too much of a burden for my family. But now I got a job, 3/4 time, in a post office, of all places. Yeah, Heretical Hatter will be a heretical postman, delivering heresy right to people's doorstep. That, of course, means that you should expect a certain drop in amount of videos I upload and publish, but I promise to continue to work hard to keep this channel going. With average 6 hours a day, I should still have quite a bit of room for writing, recording and editing videos. I also won't lie that I hope this job will help me be more energetic and focused. There are days where I sit by the computer fully aware I should be writing a script for a next video, recording or editing something, but instead I end up watching Netflix for hours as my mind simply refuses to write even a page of text. And then, one day later, I sit by the screen from 9 AM to 2 AM, 2 days in a row, writing and perfecting a 40-page long script that I need to split into 2 parts. Yes, that's how scripts dealing with Battle of Furious Ned were written. So yeah, kinda excited. Never worked as a postman before. I worked in archives of a big corporation, as assistant in a small firm, as a night stalker in a nearby shop for a time. That wasn't fun. So working as a postman for the government is something new. I hope I will learn to enjoy it. Either way, I believe that's everything for today. Thank you for joining me, and I hope you enjoyed. Now, my dear viewers and listeners, remember, wherever you are, whatever you do, try to enjoy yourself while you can. I wish you most heretical day. Ta-ta!